Well, before Rome fell into chaos, it rose like a legend. In our last video, The Rise of Rome, we uncovered how a village founded by a she-wolf-raised warrior grew into a powerhouse that conquered the Mediterranean. Epic myths, fierce battles, and the birth of the Republic. If you haven't seen it yet, hit pause and check it out. Now let's continue the tale. The Roman Republic was founded on a promise. Never again would one man rule Rome. After the fall of the monarchy in 509 BCE, power was divided between elected officials. Two consuls, chosen annually, held executive authority, while the Senate, composed of Rome's elite, controlled finances and foreign policy. In theory, it was a government of shared power. In reality, it favored the wealthy. Tensions simmered between the patricians, the old aristocratic families, and the plebeians, Rome's working class. The struggle for political equality, known as the conflict of the orders, lasted for centuries. Slowly, the plebeians gained rights, legal protections, representation through tribunes, and access to political offices. But inequality remained deeply rooted. As Rome's territory expanded, so did its problems. Military victories brought in vast wealth, but it flowed mostly to the elite. Enslaved labor displaced small farmers, creating mass poverty. Veterans returned to find their lands gone. Discontent grew, and populist leaders began rising by promising reform. The Senate, dominated by aristocrats, resisted meaningful reform. Many senators were more concerned with protecting their own wealth than addressing the growing inequality. Laws meant to limit land ownership were ignored, and the voices of the poor were often drowned out by corruption and political maneuvering. As the gap between rich and poor widened, so did the cracks in the Republic's foundation. Meanwhile, Rome's political system was straining under the weight of empire. The Republic was designed to govern a city-state, not vast provinces across 3 continents. Governors in distant territories acted like kings, often exploiting their regions for personal gain. Communication delays, lack of oversight, and rising ambition among military leaders turned Rome's expansion into a breeding ground for instability. Then came Julius Caesar. Born into a patrician family but backed by the people, Caesar was ambitious, charismatic, and relentless. He quickly climbed the political ladder, winning public support through bold policies, grand games, and generous reforms. He started his rise as a skilled orator and lawyer, known for his sharp mind and persuasive speeches. His charm and confidence made him a favorite among the Roman masses, and he strategically aligned himself with powerful allies. One of his biggest early moves was forming the First Triumvirate, a secret political alliance, with 2 of Rome's most influential men, Pompey the Great, a celebrated general, and Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome. This alliance gave Caesar the support he needed to be elected consul in 59 BCE, the highest office in the Republic. As consul, he pushed through popular reforms, including land redistribution for veterans and the poor, moves that angered the Senate but earned him lasting loyalty from the people. But his true rise began in Gaul. As governor of Gaul, Caesar waged a brutal but brilliant campaign, conquering vast lands and writing detailed accounts of his victories. These writings weren't just records, they were propaganda. Caesar crafted a heroic image and won the hearts of the Roman public. Back in Rome, the Senate grew wary of his power. When his term ended, they ordered him to return without his army. Instead, in 49 BCE, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions. It was an act of defiance that plunged Rome into civil war. Then came the battle against Pompey. The Great was once Caesar's ally, and some say his equal. A brilliant general and statesman, Pompey earned fame for his military victories in Spain, North Africa, and the eastern Mediterranean. He cleared the seas of pirates, expanded Rome's territory, and was hailed as a hero. As mentioned, when he joined forces with Caesar and Crassus in the First Triumvirate, their combined influence dominated Roman politics. But the alliance didn't last. After Crassus died and Caesar's popularity surged, tensions with Pompey grew. The Senate, growing nervous of Caesar's rising power, sided with Pompey and ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar refused, and in 49 BCE, he declared war on the Republic. After Caesar crossed the Rubicon, his march on Rome was swift and strategic. Pompey, caught off guard, believed he couldn't defeat Caesar with the troops he had in the city. He and the Senate fled to Greece, where he could regroup and gather a larger force. Caesar, now in control of Rome, moved quickly to consolidate power, but knew the real fight was still ahead. The first major engagement came in 48 BCE at the Battle of Dyrrhachium in modern-day Albania. Pompey had a numerical advantage and held strong defensive positions. Caesar tried to encircle him with a series of fortifications, but Pompey broke through. Though Caesar was forced to retreat, he managed to keep his army intact. It wasn't a decisive loss, but it set the stage for the final showdown. Later that year, the two armies met again at the Battle of Pharsalus in central Greece. Pompey had nearly double Caesar's troops and strong cavalry, but Caesar's forces were battle-hardened and fiercely loyal. Caesar used clever tactics, hiding a reserve line of infantry behind his cavalry to surprise Pompey's horsemen. The strategy worked perfectly. Pompey's cavalry collapsed, and Caesar's troops overwhelmed his army. Pompey fled the battlefield and made his run to Egypt, hoping for refuge, but was betrayed and killed by the Egyptians, marking the end of the Republic's strongest defender. His death in Egypt soon after sealed Caesar's grip on power. When Caesar arrived in Egypt in pursuit of Pompey, he found more than just the corpse of his rival. He stepped into a royal power struggle between the teenage Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. The two siblings were meant to rule together, but they had turned against each other in a brutal civil war for the Egyptian throne. Cleopatra, known for her intelligence, charm, and political savvy, saw Caesar's arrival as her chance to tip the balance. According to legend, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters, rolled up in a rug, or possibly hidden in a sack of linens, and dramatically unfurled at his feet. The famous rug story is one of history's most dramatic and seductive political plays. At the time, Cleopatra was in exile, pushed out of Alexandria by her brother's advisors. She needed to win over Caesar. To reach him undetected, Cleopatra arranged with a loyal servant to sneak her into the palace. Under cover of night, she was rolled into a rug, or bundled in a linen sack, depending on the source, carried past guards, and dramatically unrolled before Caesar. The surprise wasn't just theatrical, it was calculated. Cleopatra knew she had to make a powerful first impression, and by all accounts she did. Caesar, then in his early 50s, was reportedly struck by her charisma, wit, and boldness. Cleopatra was only about 21, but she spoke several languages, understood politics intimately, and carried herself with confidence. That night, the two talked at length. Ancient sources suggest they spent the night together, and whether for passion, power, or both, their bond was quickly sealed. By morning, the wit Cleopatra was not just back in the political game, she was at the center of it. Caesar declared support for her claim to the throne and soon found himself drawn into the Egyptian civil war. Their personal and political relationship deepened over the following months as they lived together in Alexandria, attended banquets, toured the Nile on a grand royal barge, and solidified Cleopatra's return to power. Caesar and Cleopatra even had a son, Ptolemy XV, nicknamed Caesarion, whom Cleopatra claimed as Caesar's heir. Though Caesar never officially acknowledged him, the bond between the Roman general and the Egyptian queen became legendary. Their affair scandalized Roman elites, but it also reinforced Caesar's image as a man who ruled not just Rome, but hearts, kingdoms, and destiny itself. After his victory and return to Rome, he was declared dictator for life. Caesar quickly moved to reshape the Republic in ways no one had dared before. Being declared dictator for life gave him near absolute power, something unprecedented in Rome's history. With this authority, he pushed through a wave of reforms aimed at stabilizing the crumbling republic and addressing the inequalities that had fueled so much unrest. He expanded Roman citizenship to many people in Italy and even beyond, broadening political inclusion. Debt relief programs helped ease the burden on struggling citizens, while land reforms aimed to resettle veterans and the poor. One of his most lasting changes was the reorganization of the calendar, introducing the Julian calendar, which corrected the inaccuracies of the old lunar system and brought Rome closer to the solar year we still use today. But while many admired these reforms, Caesar's concentration of power terrified others. To the traditional senators and elites, he looked less like a republican leader and more like a monarch, a king in all but name. Rome had long rejected kingship, associating it with tyranny and oppression. For these opponents, Caesar's actions threatened the very ideals on which the Republic was built: fueling a growing conspiracy that would soon have deadly consequences. The Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BCE, was meant to be a turning point. Caesar had called a Senate meeting at the theater of Pompey, where many believed he would announce reforms or celebrations. Instead, a group of senators led by Brutus, Cassius, and other longtime Republicans was waiting to end his rule forever. These men saw Caesar's growing power as a threat to Rome's freedom. They feared he aimed to crown himself king and erase the Republic's traditions. So, armed with hidden daggers, they surrounded Caesar and stabbed him 23 times. Legend says his last words were, "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" expressing shock at the betrayal by someone he trusted. But rather than restoring the Republic, Caesar's assassination unleashed chaos. Instead of unity, it sparked civil war. The power vacuum led to brutal struggles between Caesar's supporters, like Mark Antony and Octavian, and the conspirators. Ultimately, the Republic's fragile system couldn't survive the turmoil. Within years, Rome transformed from a republic into an empire under Augustus, Caesar's adopted heir, showing that the killers had doomed the republic they wanted to save. Rome's story didn't end with Caesar's death. It only grew more intense. The republic's collapse paved the way for an empire that would shape history for centuries. In the next video, we'll dive into the rise of Augustus, the birth of the Roman Empire, and how a republic built on shared power became the world's first imperial superpower. Make sure to watch because the story of Rome's transformation is as dramatic and powerful as its rise. Comment below on other topics which you would like us to discuss. See you next time.